Come one and come all. Welcome to No Infringement Intended, an intellectual property podcast of our law firm, Troutman Pepperlock, hosted by the so-called bad boys of intellectual property, Rusty Close and myself, Austin Padgett. While you're settling in for this episode, please make sure that you're subscribed and pour some 5 stars out for your friends over here. You know, in our pre-recording prep session with upper management, they reminded us that 1, we're great. 2, that data suggests that this podcast may be changing the entire legal-related media landscape. But 3, reminding us that there may be some people who are just now starting to listen. So if you're new, please make sure to go back and listen to our archived episodes. Each episode certainly stands on its own, but we're building something here, and we want you to be fully informed as we make our way into the later episodes. We'll try to reference those episodes when we can to cross off that topic, but if we've covered it in depth elsewhere. But just a heads up that there are earlier episodes that you may really love. On to the new stuff, though. Rusty, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, we're kind of carrying over a little bit of a sports theme from our last episode as we get started, and I got a question for you. How do you feel about grown men in particular wearing sports jerseys?
As opposed to kids, right?
Kids, I feel like they can get away with it no problem.
For sure.
You may have a stronger opinion on the adults.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a kid wearing a jersey. So I don't begrudge any adult who has a jersey and just loves it. But to me, that's the costumery of the players in the game. And for kids who have a dream.
Yeah, fair.
I don't know if you've ever worn or even seen worn like an actual football jersey without pads. It just does not look right. And it's not supposed to. So it's already, if you buy a jersey like off the rack, it's already been tinkered with to look presentable as a non-participant. So I don't even know if it really counts, but I love fan gear and wearing it and seeing what people can do with it. And there's some cool mashups up there for different teams' fans.
I mean, look, I will cop to owning baseball jerseys. Those I think are a little more casual and,
loose.
and
Yeah,
can fit
for
pretty
sure.
well if you're going to a baseball game. Particularly fond of a powder blue Bob Horner Braves jersey that I have that gets a lot of good compliments, if I wear that to a game.
Sure.
We all know it's canon on this podcast, big Florida State fan.
I am, yeah.
So might I
Guilty
throw
as
out some
charged.
potential options for Florida State jerseys?
Okay, it would have to be in the teal blue because that's the tribal blue was very cool in the stores. But yeah, totally with it.
Does number 50, does that one bring to mind anyone for you?
There's only one person it could be because FSU is very selective on whose number gets retired. But number 50 comes before my time as a fan, but you're definitely talking about a nose guard.
It doesn't come before your time as a wrestling fan, though, which is also well established on this
Very
podcast.
true. Ron Simmons did
number
wrestle,
50,
yeah.
Exactly. I mean, perhaps better known as Farouk from the WWE or a member of the tag team Doom, which I had gone to some radio on-site thing and they were giving away wrestling t-shirts. This is probably 6th grade, and had a nice Doom t-shirt that I took away from that event. And then, of course, there's number 21 that any Florida State fan should know.
I know who you're trying to get at, but I would be remiss as a Florida State fan if I didn't tell you that Deion Sanders actually wore number 2 at FSU.
Oh, that's right, when he was at Florida State.
So number 21, prime time, except I forget the team, the Ravens, where you couldn't wear 21. There was one team where you couldn't wear 21. But yeah, in his total pro career, 21. But at FSU, oh man, the deuce is loose.
Yeah, I mean, but now, and I don't know if that's still okay if you're down in Tallahassee now that he's the Colorado coach.
A shout out to my mom here for buying me Prime sneakers when I was a kid. I will never forget the joy that man brought me as a player and as a brand for very cool shoes from a very cool mom. I love you, Mom. Thank you.
I would think that around the same time I got my Doom t-shirt was when Deion showed up on the cover of Sports Illustrated after getting drafted by the Falcons, which is just a legendary image as far as Sports Illustrated
For
covers
sure.
go.
Absolutely.
All right. Couple more quick ones. 17. That one
That's
should be
Charlie.
pretty easy.
Yep. Heisman winning Charlie Ward.
Yep. 28.
That's work done.
Yep. Another Falcon. Legendary good guy in the community. And these two I really could see you wear. Number 16.
Yeah. This retired number. So this is cherished amongst FSU fans of Chris Wink.
Chris Winkie, who was all of about 32 when he was playing at FSU.
Yeah. He was a ball player of all sorts. Yeah, absolutely. He had a very mature presence in the locker room.
Number 38.
Oh man, Sebastian Janikowski. We had Aguayo later, who was a great kicker as well. But Sebastian I remember on kickoffs, him just for no reason, just putting it through the uprights just because he could.
Completely pummeling the ball.
I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it was legendary. Yeah, I mean, there's just a string of numbers particularly for fans who were in the 80s and 90s when the team just had all sorts of personalities and folks involved, like number 10, Derek Brooks, and Peter Warwick at 9.
Yeah,
and then later even you had Jameis Winston, big number 5. So lots of players I've left out, but shout out to all of them. I love you all. Thank you for contributing to the team.
All of them. Yes, all of them. Can you conjure up in your mind the old powder blue Houston Oilers
that blue
jersey?
Is iconic. It still sticks in my mind. It's very close to the powder blue of the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, I like that color
very
blue
much.
a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the early 80s really, it's almost like teams had their home and away, but also a lot of them had a powder blue.
Oh, yeah.
St. Louis Cardinals and
good call.
The Phillies had powder blue. Do you remember number 34 for the Oilers?
Man, I only remember, Warren Moonmore, number 1, his entire career. So I cannot tell you who number 34 was.
Well, the one I'm thinking of is going to predate him by a little bit, but it's Earl Campbell, legendary running back.
The Tyler Rose. Yep.
Yeah. And there is a YouTube clip that you can dial up, and you can find footage of Christopher Cross performing on a show called The Midnight Special, wearing a powder blue Earl Campbell jersey.
That's pretty incredible.
And it really is just about perfect.
If I remember right, Campbell was kind of known as a very hard-hitting.
Oh, huge, yeah.
That's the bruiser type of enforcer type of guy. Okay.
100%, which fits directly in line with Christopher Cross's style of music.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
What can you tell us about the musical stylings of Christopher Cross?
Yeah, for those who can't tell, we're being sarcastic because Christopher Cross is known probably as one of the main figures of what is now called yacht rock. That it's soft rock, very smooth, a lot of times kind of headier lyrics, but a very gentle way of delivering them.
Yeah, it's just, I like to, much to the chagrin of my family, put on a little yacht rock station maybe on Sunday mornings when I'm just having some coffee and doing stuff around the house. It just really sets the right tone and puts you in the right mood.
It's definitely a vibe. 100%. For sure. Yeah.
So we've got Christopher Cross wearing this powder blue Earl Campbell jersey. The Midnight Special was a musical variety show. It ran for most of the 70s. And I think this video is from September of 1980, which was, I think, Earl Campbell's 3rd season. And he was Offensive Player of the Year his rookie year. He was MVP or Offensive MVP his 2nd year. And then again, Offensive Player of the Year this year. He came into the league just on fire. So you've got Christopher Cross wearing this jersey. And then for part of the performance, he's playing a double neck guitar.
No kidding. I know he's a player, but I didn't know he would have I wouldn't associate him with having a double neck.
Well, we're going to get into what you would associate that with. But all of this incongruity as you're seeing this image on screen.
What song is he playing?
Oh, we're going to get to that. That's a big surprise.
Okay. Don't let me get ahead of you.
So you tell me, you're the guitar expert, the guitar player. Have you ever played a double neck guitar?
Only at a guitar store have I picked one up. They are very heavy guitars.
Right.
Not all of them are going to be super heavy, but the ones particularly made by Gibson, pretty heavy. You're handling a huge chunk of wood with 2 necks. It's very unwieldy. Extremely, to me, it was uncomfortable.
Sure.
But yeah, I've played on one. And so there are several variety of them, but the most typical format you'll see is like a 12-string guitar, which has a real jangle to it because you're doubling the strings. So it has some detuned aspect to it. Plus the lower strings are octave up doubled. So you have a wide space and that gives it a lot of jangle as well. Lots of harmonics, plus a regular guitar, like a 6-string guitar.
So that's exactly, I think, my understanding of how these things are configured. 12-string on top, 6-string on the bottom. And the Gibson, to me, is kind of the iconic one because it's the one that Jimmy Page played. So I think for most people who have a sense of this, if they're not picturing Christopher Cross, I think they're picturing Jimmy Page. And he played it on Stairway to Heaven in particular. So my understanding is for songs where he wanted to be able to play On part of it, it's more of a textural, you're kind of setting a tone and a feel, and that's when he's playing the 12-string portion, and then he's going to get into it, and he's going to start jamming and soloing, and he's going to drop down to the 6-string, and he doesn't want to have to switch guitars during the course of the song. Does that sound reasonable enough?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you have like Don Felder from the Eagles as well with Hotel California doing that. And then I always think of like Rush, in kind of early Rush, both Alex and Geddy would come out. Geddy would have a double neck guitar, one with a bass and one with a guitar. And, you know, Alex, and they're going to play Xanadu all 12 minutes or however long it is. So I think they're useful for like those songs where you have a distinct textural change where you need a 12-string. And maybe it's just you don't want to, if you're going to buy a 12-string, why not buy this too? Right. But like, I think more than anything, they look amazing. Like there are a few things that like get people ready to run through a brick wall in this life, just go absolutely bananas. Feel free to disagree with this, but like there's a great halftime speech. There's the teacher announcing to a classroom that Friday's a pizza party. A monster truck is 3. And then number 4 is a guitar tech bringing out the double guitar and the guitarist putting it on. And absolutely everyone goes bananas.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I think we could say it's probably almost a gimmick, if not completely a gimmick. But yeah, I mean, you're going to get my attention if your tech brings out a dual neck guitar. Just for the listener's sake, and because, you know, we're a multimedia podcast, I wanted to give an example from Stairway. And this is, I think, from Madison Square Garden in like 1973. So we got a first clip here where Page is playing the upper part, the 12-string part. So this will give you a sense of that more textural part. And then here's a second clip where he really jams, you know, he starts going into the soloing part. He's dropped down to the 6-string portion of the guitar. So let's listen to that. So we kind of set the stage. We've got Page and his classic Gibson dual neck guitar. And now we've got Christopher Cross. He's got on his Earl Campbell jersey. He's on stage with the dual neck guitar. And you asked earlier, what song is he playing? Do you even want to take a guess?
Hold on. I mean, this is a real hard vibe that you're getting, like the Campbell jersey, a double neck guitar. It's all saying like, I'm not doing a yacht rock
It's time to throw down.
I'm going to guess he's doing some sort of cover, probably stylistically chiller, but a cover of some hard rock song.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's fire up that last clip. Do you recognize what that clip is from?
I do. That's off of his first album. That is Sailing.
That is Sailing.
Yeah, the big hit.
He is on stage with the jersey on, with the dual neck guitar, and he plays Sailing, which is in many regards the definitive yacht rock anthem. And according to the website Yacht or Not, which if you've never been on there, it's not, it's spelled like yacht. It is their 12th ranked yacht rock song of all time.
Okay.
Do you care to guess what the first is?
Oh man, is it another Christopher Cross?
No, baby. It's What a Fool Believes by the Doobies.
Oh man, okay. The Doobie Brothers. Okay.
A perfect.
My youngest son's name is Arthur, and so Christopher Cross is singing Arthur's theme for the movie, and my kid loves that song. I mean, it's not about him, but it's about him. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. I love it. I mean, if you really want to set your 7th grade daughter off, crank up What a Fool Believes in the school drop-off line, and man, will the embarrassment really show
I'm
through.
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this has all been fun to talk about, but what it was making me think of seeing this guitar and knowing that we're the bad boys of IP, is there any sort of intellectual property related to this thing, or did anyone bother to try to protect it in any way? And just more generally, what kind of IP protection is available for guitars?
Yeah, it's all good questions. I mean, we did our recent episode on guitar pedals.
Right.
And now here we are talking about the actual guitars themselves.
The real deal. So in previous episodes, we've talked about patents. We've talked about trademarks and copyrights. But in the world of patents, we have utility patents. And so, as always, we're kind of generalizing here, but they sort of protect ideas. So if you're the person who invents the ballpoint pen and you get a patent on that, the idea is that you get coverage on the idea and different implementations and configurations of a ballpoint pen. And so there are a handful of iconic utility patents that relate to guitars. And so tell me if these are features that you're familiar with, but Fender's synchronized tremolo or Gibson's tune-o-matic bridge.
Yeah, both are still used today so I have guitars with both of those things. Not on the same guitar, but yeah, the synchronized tremolo is what people normally call a floating tremolo system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why if anyone ever sees the back of an open like Stratocaster, there's springs going up in the back of it. That's what that's for, is to add the tension to bring the tremolo system back to level, basically.
Well, and if there's one thing we've learned about patents and utility patents is it only gives you sort of that right, that protection to exclude others for a fixed period of time. And all of these foundational guitar utility patents are old. I mean, this is stuff from the 50s and we're still using it today. So they patented the stuff, but it was so good that we're still using it. And at this point, most anyone can integrate it into their guitars.
Yeah, now that I think about it, some of my Fenders have it's probably not a tune-o-matic bridge itself, but it has that concept. And the tune-o-matic's a really interesting one because it solves a technical problem with the guitar where the fretboard is laid out like in mathematic proportions, but different strings behave differently. Like the low strings actually need a little more runway in length to be able to hit in tune where the intonation is supposed to happen along the fretboard. And so that the tune-o-matic bridge gives little like slots basically that you can adjust for each string, where the higher strings, maybe you can shorten them up a little bit, and the longer strings you can lengthen them, or vice versa, however you need to as you go up the neck. Like you can tune a guitar open where it's tuned and strum and nonsense, but as you're working the fretboard, your intonation, if you don't have it set out right, will suffer going up the fretboard. So you can hit like maybe bar a chord way up high on the frets. It's going to sound more out of tune because of this. It's a mathematical problem of the frets. And so that tune-o-matic bridge is trying to help you make those micro adjustments to make it more.
So we established before that our guitar gearheads are basic entry-level electrical engineers, but also mathematicians, apparently.
Right, and mechanical engineers. Just general tinkers. Nothing's ever good enough. That's the problem, is it's never enough.
But it sounds like with these sort of innovations, even from the 50s, it's kind of like the mousetrap, right? I mean, there's no need to build a better one because the one they came up with, whatever that is, 75 years ago, it works fine. It still works fine to this day, and there's probably not a better way to do it.
That is the interesting thing about guitars, is that, most of the big problems were identified and solved between 1940 and 1960.
Yeah.
That it's, okay, there's a hum in the line when we have single coil pickups. What are we going to do? We're going to buck them. So we have humbuckers that are designed to get rid of a certain level of hum that's persistent in other types. And so they still wind them, and, the general configuration is essentially the same. Of course, like micro innovations here and there to perfect upon it. But yeah, that we still call them humbuckers.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of what we talk about is kind of like, what should my IP strategy be? And part of the thing, we talked about this a lot in the Cooler Wars. If you've got a consumer good like a guitar, there are certain steps you can take early on, certain patents you can go after, but you have to be strategic. You have to be cognizant of your resources and what you want to do. And you don't always know that product is going to become iconic. And a lot of the guitars that we see today are from the 50s, and they are iconic to this day. I mean, if it's the Les Paul, the Stratocaster, the Telecaster, I think those all came out in the early 50s.
Right.
And so a lot of, what do you do to protect? You almost find yourself doing stuff after the fact. And so part of what we talked about in the Cooler Wars episode was design patents and trade dress. And we didn't necessarily get down in the weeds on the nuances between the two. But I think guitars in particular give us a good opportunity to kind of get into the nuances and the differences between the two and what they're intended to cover and why there's not as much overlap as there might seem to be on the face. So if we start with design patents, right? Well, design patents are meant to cover an object's ornamental appearance. So if we think about the body shape of those guitars, I mean, even dumb me who can't play any of them, I know what a Gibson SG looks like. I know what a Stratocaster looks like. I know what a Les Paul looks like. I know what a Flying V looks like. And I think all of them had design patents for a period of time. But just like the utility patents, those go away. They only last for a period of time. And then, okay, now these are available for everyone else to use. But we also talked about this notion of trade dress. And okay, well, let's think about this. Design patents expire over time. Trade dress falls under trademark law and in theory can last forever, right? And so if we think, okay, well, how can this help us out? And if trade dress covers the characteristics of the visual appearance of a product that signify the source of the product to consumers. Well, again, if I see an SG, I know the source of that, it's Gibson. And if I see a Stratocaster, I know that's a Fender. So it seems like...
Yeah, jumping in real quick.
Yeah.
You know that now.
Yeah.
If they came out with if it was 1950 and you saw the first Telecaster,
sure,
you wouldn't know that right out of the gate, right? And so that's part of it, is that the source origin of the shape has to build itself over time,
right?
Either through marketing or widespread prevalence. Those are really the two, word of mouth, all those sorts of things that you measure by, but it has to acquire distinctiveness. Basically, for trade dress, that's usually what you're looking for, is something that's acquired that level of distinctiveness. So when people see the Telecaster, they're like, I know that shape. That's a Fender.
Right. And I think we'll get into this a little bit below because, I've always had this notion that it's kind of an after the fact strategy that you try to protect your trade dress. And I think that goes because, well, it is after the fact because it's built up that recognition over time. But some of the trade, I don't know, do you call them trade dress registrations or is it just trademark registrations? But
yeah,
they're filed in 1970, but the first use is in 1952, right? So it is in some ways after the fact, but it necessarily needs to be that way in some cases.
Yeah, because when you file at first, the trademark office is going to say that has some problems, right? It's either functional or how are you telling me that the shape of this lamp, let's say we're in lamp world,
right?
Like, how is the consumer supposed to know that this isn't just decorative, like that this signals to me who made this lamp?
Right.
And the quality that you should expect when you buy this lamp.
It's almost, you can imagine that about the point in time that the design patent expires, you would have built up enough, sort of recognition of what it is that you could then pursue the trade dress. But there's a problem when it comes to you've got a design patent on the body shape, but talk to me about why it's a problem to pursue trade dress on the body shape.
Yeah, the worst problem for you is probably the functionality problem.
Right.
So I love my Strat. It's the first electric guitar I ever bought, and I love it because it's so comfortable. It looks awesome too, but it is the most comfortable guitar for me to play.
Right.
It's contoured at the bottom, so the way it pushes upon, your belly basically is very comfortable, and it has a carved it's contoured for your forearm to sit across the top of it. So it's light and it feels very nice to play, particularly compared to some of the other brands that are heavier and have their own pros and cons and stuff like that. But for me, the Strat, because I've had it so long, just feels like my guitar. I mean, it feels like a part of me, right? There's a problem with, if you start talking about the shape of it, okay, well, that contour on the back is for my forearm to rest easy against. It might look cool and help make, kind of the symmetric shape of it or whatever, but it has a functionality issue to it. I think the other problem for probably the guitar body itself is that these are chunks of wood, and particularly these days, I can just dial it up on my wood cutting machine take a look at this, cut me one of those. They're easily replicated. And if you don't keep a handle on it, like that item that we were talking about, the acquired distinctiveness, well, that goes out the door if there are a bunch of other people doing it. All of a sudden, okay, we spent a lot of money here to try to tell people that, okay, this is what our product looks like and what they should expect it to look like and what they should look for when they're looking for a guitar. Well, if they go to the guitar shop and there are 1,000 other guitars and they're not all made by me and they look very, very similar, all of a sudden that distinctiveness is at least limited, if not entirely ruined. So you have the two prongs are potential problems. You have functionality and has it acquired and maintained its distinctiveness.
And I think the functionality part is really where I wanted to start, because the design patent doesn't care. If the functionality led you to a certain design, that's fine from the patent office's perspective. But it seems that if functionality played into your design, how you came about your shape, then from a trademark office perspective, that's a problem for you.
It goes back to kind of the patent is the so-called limited monopoly, where trademarks, as you mentioned, potentially unlimited. As long as you're using the trade dress and you've hit those prongs, it can last as long as you use it.
And you mentioned on the Stratocaster, the shape, it's got the place to sort of rest your forearm. But I think like with other guitars, you've got like on the SG, you've got the double cutouts up at the neck, which I assume plays some role in the playability and the access to certain frets and things of that nature, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it looks like the devil, but it looks, right. I mean, it looks so cool. But yeah, for sure. I mean, having a single cutaway is great, but if you can get your entire hand easily to 14th fret, like you're doing very well because you have unlimited possibility then. And
so you've got this sort of tension where you're trying, okay, well, goodness gracious, we had design patents. Well, that only lasts so long, but we did design it this way for certain reasons. And now we can't have, trade dress that protects it. I assume, if they tried to pursue trade dress protection, they've got marketing, they've got all of this stuff that's probably going to work against them, where the examiner or whoever's looking at the application is going to say, well, yeah, but you said it's got these cutouts for these reasons. It's got this shape for this reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And particularly if there's any utility patents on any parts of it, that plays against you as well, because that goes to, per se functionality. You've essentially admitted that there's functionality around it. That comes up for some of our clients, not in this space, but it comes up for some of our clients sometimes where they're like, wow, we're, our utility patent's running out. Can we stretch this into something else? And
right.
Like, the fact that it's a utility patent, the examiner
really going to be a problem.
Will probably actually find it. And that's going to be an issue for us.
Again, goes back to my notion of this always seems to come up as a after the fact way of trying to extend protection. Think about how do we string this along? Well, so if we can't get trade dress protection, at least in theory, on the body design, can you talk to us about like where the manufacturers have gone to try to get that indication of source?
Yeah. So usually what you see is up at the headstock.
Okay.
That's a lot of times where the maker's name and brand and logo are displayed. But not only that, the actual stylization of the headstock. When I look on stage and I see someone playing a Strat style guitar, let's say, but I'm not sure if it's a Fender Stratocaster or not. If I look and I see the scrolled head, I know it's almost certainly a Fender Strat because that's their headstock. There are a few iterations of it, like the Jimi Hendrix had this fat, like kind of roll, and it looks very cool. Right. But, or there are other makers like Paul Reed Smith, theirs comes and it's not 6 inline tuners. Typically it's, 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and kind of has this, arched in shape to it. But if you just started filming down at the body of the guitar, I don't know that I could tell you right off the bat who made it.
Right.
So yeah, it's usually not until I get up to the headstock that I can, that's usually where I'm looking to try to see, okay, particularly if I'm chasing tone, I'm like, oh, I got to have that guitar.
You can't see their pedals, so you at least got to identify the guitar.
Yeah, so I'm going to look at the headstock first, actually, probably. And I should mention for the people who don't know, the headstock is, if you're looking at a guitar and setting it down, it's the very top of the guitar where all the tuners are. On most guitars, the strings come up from the body to that.
Yeah. And as far as you know, I mean, it sounds like it because it's what you're looking for even in 2025. So I'm imagining that companies have had pretty good success, at least boxing people out in a way so that, consumers who know what they're looking for are able to still say, okay, that's the real deal, or that's a Gibson, that's a Fender, that's, this, that, and the other.
Yeah. My understanding is that a lot of this came to the head in the 1970s when the big American manufacturers were, for more like, a lot of their quality was slipping. There were some changes being made to cut costs and increase profits on the guitars. And particularly Japanese companies were starting to come in with some very good guitars in comparison at a much better price point. And so there was a lawsuit about it. It settled. My understanding is that the settlement, and from what the market shows, the settlement more or less says, well, the bodies are the bodies, and there's not much we can do about that. But the headstock, particularly the logos and the headstock and that type of indicia outside of the body, are things that you have to stay away from. You have to come up with your own thing there.
Again, the headstock, at least in theory, it doesn't have any functionality. So, I mean, it seems that even if those, the Japanese companies or whoever the not Gibson, not Fender manufacturers are, could build something that is in effect identical, in the tone, the way it plays, all of those things, but you at least indicate to the consumers that it's, it is something different just by the headstock.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you have to watch out too now these days, because like headstocks are used for, a lot of times people now put a tuner on it. They're tuning devices that you can put on your headstock that feel the vibrations from the guitar, and that's how you tune your guitar. And so if you were to say, look for the extended headstock where you can easily, because some, like my Telecaster, it wasn't built when these things existed. So it has very little room to like try to squeeze in one of those tuners if I'm going to use it. But let's say somebody came in with a Telecaster type style of guitar, but they said, we included a larger headstock just so you can make sure that you get your tuner on there. All of a sudden you've got a functionality problem, right? And you're saying that it's functional. And so you might say, well, we have some protection over this headstock. We're going to keep people from doing this extended thing. And all of a sudden, because you said it's functional, now you got a problem. So you like, a lot of it is like not only what you do, but what you say about your product as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mentioned earlier a couple of times the kind of going back in time, but one thing I found was that Gibson's Dove Wing headstock, they filed that registration in 1974, but they claimed a first use back in 1922.
Do they call it Dove Wing? Is that what they call it?
That was one that I found.
Yeah. I always think of them
but
as
I think there's also the open book.
Is usually what I think.
Yeah. I think this one's different.
Okay.
But
Dove Wing. I'll have
the
to look
open book or the mustache or something like that.
Interesting.
So in terms of our takeaways, right? Like what can we learn from this? What can we strategize based on what we know? Again, with consumer goods, there's these several different levers that we can pull. We've got trademarks and copyrights, not really the focus of this episode, but just like in the cooler wars, it's utility patents, design patents, and trade dress. But it's just hard to know, as you're bringing products to market, what are the right things to be doing? How is the best way to allocate your resources at that time? And I think just being aware that these things are out there can kind of help you maybe work backwards if you need to. Be careful about the way you're marketing things, things of that nature.
Yeah, for sure. And particularly if you're going to like come up with this concept of trade dress, the earlier you can do that, like, and it's not impossible, but it's tougher from the attorney perspective when you're coming in much later, because there may be other products out there that can limit your ability to actually really quantify what it is that you're
right.
claiming ownership over. So if you can kind of early on make that assessment, then you can have some sort of enforcement strategy and say, okay, these are the three things that like are really, we think we can get protection over, but we can only get protection over it if we remain pretty much the sole provider of those three things. So we know our enforcement strategy. We're going to get A, B, and C, and anything that has those items or a mix of them, we've got to go after so we can keep them off the market. and be aggressive about those things. The other things we can, pick and choose, so you're not spending a fortune and making, a constitutional case out of every little thing. You can really get thoughtful about it earlier on. You may not know everything at that point. That's the problem. So you have some limitations. You may need to be flexible, but it's much easier to be successful in that path. It may require more effort.
No, that makes sense. Sure. Yeah, diligence and just staying on top of things, I think, as much as anything. And if we go back to, the instrument that brought us here, Christopher Cross's custom-made Fender dual neck guitar, and whether there was any IP protection, I mean, as far as I could find, no. When we look at the Gibson that Jimmy Page played, I think they kind of relied on some of the body shape stuff, but I think it is an SG, at least you can squint and see it. But those had all expired by then. And, then you think about, well, I mean, at least it seemed innovative, but maybe it's just putting two guitars and chopping them and putting together. And maybe they just figured, look, there's never going to be a big enough market for something like this niche product that it's worth, seeking to protect it in that way.
I love it. Yeah, well, we'll have to figure out how to do more guitar episodes, I mean, in all honesty. So we'll find some angle to get it all in.
Hopefully we haven't exhausted them all yet. And if you want, I went online today, you can get the Gibson. It's going to set you back $10K, but I mean, it can arrive in a week or two. So I think they're still, mass producing that to a certain extent.
Either that or a Klon pedal, or somehow convince my wife that 20 grand is worth. I'll work on it in the background. So we'll,
Yeah. Think that through.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. If you would, give us a 5-star rating to help everyone know what we're up to here. And remember, if you get caught between the moon and New York City, there's always no infringement intended.
Copyright Troutman Pepperlock, LLP. These recorded materials are designed for educational purposes only. This podcast is not legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individual participants. Troutman does not make any representations or warranties, expressed or implied, regarding the contents of this podcast. Information on previous case results does not guarantee a similar future result. Users of this podcast may save and use the podcast only for personal or other non-commercial educational purposes. No other use, including without limitation, reproduction, retransmission, or editing of this podcast may be made without the prior written permission of Troutman Pepperlock. If you have any questions, please contact us at troutman.com.